When a referral comes in for a school-aged child to receive a language assessment, it's very important that we use a wide range of tools to assess this child's capabilities in order to get a full picture of how this child can perform. One of the first things that needs to be done is to gather a case history. This can often be done through a parent interview. During this parent interview, it's very important to see if this child has been diagnosed with any medical conditions, if they have a hearing loss, if they had a low birth weight or premature birth, and also how they develop their milestones. As we know, the development of milestones is a great determiner to see how they develop later on in life as well. So those would be some things like to see when they walked, when their first words were, and other things to that nature. Another thing that I think is very important before you start the screening process would be to discuss with the child what's going to happen throughout this. Oftentimes children might be really nervous, or they feel like they're not going to perform very well, or you're going to have too high of expectations. So if you just talk to them and let them know that, oh, we're going to go through and do some activities, you'll have to point to pictures, and if you don't know it, that's okay, and just really reassure them that it's not an intimidating process, that we're just going to see what they can do and see how they work. So I think that's a very important part because it might lead to better outcomes when the child actually is in testing with you. Another thing that is important is to see if the child has received a hearing screening recently. If they have not, that is a big thing to do because you want to rule out any hearing loss, because that can also affect language greatly, as we know. The next thing that I think should be done would be an interview with the classroom teacher. They see the child in an educational setting, so they can compare them to same-age peers and see how they perform on school tasks, which is often a big thing when we're testing children. We want to know if they're performing good on their homework or if they need a lot of assistance, things to that nature. So that's an important part of the assessment process. Following that, you would probably start using your standardized test, and it's very important that you choose a range of standardized tests so you can observe the child's abilities in all aspects of language. These aspects include receptive language, expressive language, and pragmatics. There's various tests out there you want to make sure that that test seems to be a good fit for that child. So you really need to do some research and make sure that that test is the best one for the child and their case history description. Another thing that's very nice about standardized tests is that they often come with norms. So that way you can reference that child and compare them to their same age peers to see how they're performing. So that way you can tell like if they're way below their peers or if they're on the edge, like they might need therapy, might not. You can just compare them in that way. Also, standardized tests are often required for qualifying for services, so that's another important reason to use those when you're assessing a child. Not all of the standardized tests are exhaustive. They don't always show a perfect image of what the child is, how the child can perform, because they're just a snapshot in one situation, one time. So oftentimes we need to do criterion reference assessments. And these assessments can come in all forms. You can do them in any way that you feel is necessary. So if a child performed really poorly on a receptive language task on the standardized test, you can create a criterion reference test to see if they line up or if they can be taught certain things and then improve their scores. Another thing that a criterion reference test that's very useful would be a language sample. You can gather these either in the clinic or wherever you're practicing. You can just gather them while playing with them or any other situation that they might enjoy. Or you could have a parent record them at home in a more naturalistic setting to see a more representative image of how they communicate. And then from there you can analyze this language sample in various ways. You can get an MLU, you can get T units, and you can see how complex their sentences are and if they're at a level near same age peers. So that is a very important part of our assessment as well. Another thing for the pragmatic section, standardized tests often have a hard time with pragmatics because pragmatics occur during everyday situations. It's talking, it's how you communicate with others, and that's very hard to capture during a standardized test. So one way that you could do that is to go observe in the classroom and see how this child interacts with their peers and things to that nature to see if they seem really shy or if they're outgoing or interrupt the class, things of that like that. You want to see how they interact pragmatically. So that basically covers all of the things that need to be done. You really want to get a good case history that has all the information needed. You want to talk to the parent and child and see what they think the issues are and what outcomes they would like to see. You want to perform a number of standardized tests in order to get as full of a picture as you can get with standardized tests to see their performance in different aspects of language, and then the criterion reference test to supplement the information that you found.